getting in front of your audience, getting in front of your potential clients, and investing in, like you said, your own voice is a really smart move.
You don't have to have one niche. You can have a couple of niches, but market to a niche.
Pricing is a bit of a game. It's something you should play with and find something that's right for you and work on your positioning and how you do that, not just focus on the hourly rate.
Hello, Rory, and welcome to not Word on the Street, but Marketing in the Madness. Welcome back.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It's exciting to be with you again and on the new podcast as well.
I know. Well, we're going to get straight in there today. Now, one of the main reasons that I've invited Rory on the podcast today is to talk about the bench press report. So before we start talking about it, whereas usually I say to my guests, tell us more about you. I'm actually going to ask you, Rory, to tell me more about the bench press report and what it is that you do and why you do it and the kind of insights it will help us with today.
Yes. So Bench Press is a survey of UK, these days, worldwide agency owners. But the report we're going to focus on today is the UK report that we do every year, where we survey agency owners in January and February time. And then in March, we release those results in a report, which is free to download. That talks about all sorts of different stats and metrics, anything from how confident agency owners are feeling about the year ahead to how much they're charging for their services, to how much they're paying themselves on a personal level, profitability levels, where they win their new business. Like the list goes on of the questions that we've asked over the years. So 2023 was our 13th year of Bench Press, and we had, I believe the number was about 600 to 650 agencies take part, which was great and enabled us to split the report in two. So we've got one for over £1 million turnover agencies and one for under £1 million agencies as well.
Amazing. So I feel like I'm going to learn a lot today. I'm sure our lovely listeners are as well. And yeah, I mean, I always love reading the report. It's full of really insightful, helpful, facts, I guess, that actually help decision making as an agency leader a lot easier. So I know I'm going to take a lot away from today, and I'm going to ask all the questions and get the actionable insights, I guess, that maybe I wouldn't necessarily know just from reading the report. So I'm going to delve a bit deeper. So Rory, first up, what are the key takeaways this year? What were the kind of key trends that you guys saw? Is there anything that kind of overarching we should know about?
Yeah, I would say the key trend, the number one thing we noticed was really quite concerning, to be honest, when we first started doing the analysis of all of the responses. And it was that ultimately profitability is down, which is the main thing. So we've looked at gross profit over the last few years. It was at 44%. Funnily enough, for both over and under £1 million agencies last year. This year, it's at 40% for agencies over £1 million and 36% for agencies under £1 million. So that's really concerning. We talk frequently about aiming for that 50% mark when it comes to your gross profit margin. And we have a very specific way of calculating gross profit, by the way, that I can talk through or share later. But that was the main thing. And I guess what was even more alarming there was then the concern when we delve deeper into that. So profitability being down, but why is that? Because if profitability was down because agency owners were paying themselves more, or because they were growing hugely and therefore profit naturally drops in those kind of years, then maybe it wouldn't be such a concern. But actually, when we looked even further, not only was profitability down, growth had slowed compared to a year ago, and personal remuneration for the directors had also dropped as well. So I'd say three pretty key areas had all gone down since this time last year.
Have you got, Rory, any insights as to why that might be?
Yes, I think it's been a difficult time for agencies with costs going up so considerably and agencies really struggling to keep their pricing high and actually increasing pricing to reflect their increasing costs. So that's definitely been a key thing. I also think there's been maybe a bit of zealousness to discount that I strongly feel against. I think agencies are often giving discounts where they can't afford to be, they shouldn't be, and they're not getting anything in return, crucially, as well. And all of those things are contributing to this drop in gross profit.
Yeah, it's scary, isn't it? Because, the world has, it felt like amidst COVID, us agencies actually, on the whole, did okay, having, read the reports that were coming out at the time. But now the knock-on effect of the cost of living crisis, recession, prices going up, us probably not reacting as quickly as we shoulda, woulda, coulda, and because others aren't as well. There's a chicken and egg or knock-on effect of, if the other agencies aren't and you do, then are you pricing yourself out? So I think there's some really interesting things that we can delve into there that will enable us to be braver about putting those prices up. And I have to say the same at Street. I am one of those 650 agencies that filled in the report, and we've grown year on year this year. So I don't think this will be in this year's report. This will be next year. But this year, our profitability actually will be slightly better than last year, but our turnover is staying quite similar. And that's we will have grown a tiny bit, but like 50 grand rather than, year on year before, we were a few 100,000 growing, that kind of rate of growth has slowed a little bit. So I actually find the report quite reassuring in some ways to know that it's not just us, that, life has started, that, things are creaking a little bit, and it can be tough. And actually lots of businesses are in a very similar place.
100%. And I think a big telltale sign for that was that we ask every year in our Benchpress survey how confident agency owners are feeling on a scale of 1 to 100, with 50 being the middle marker. So anything above 50, you're feeling good. And obviously the higher that number, the better. Anything below 50, you're not feeling good about the year ahead. And obviously the closer to 0, the worse. This year, that number was down at pretty much the heights of COVID for the first time. So back in the middle of 2020, when we were in restrictions, that number was 60. It then rose the following January when we were out, and actually it looked like we were going to have a positive year ahead, to 71. It was 74 last year, so definitely on this upward trajectory. But this year it had gone back down to 66. So it shows, I think, that agency owners can see that we've got a difficult year ahead. And what I would add is maybe a slight caveat with that. We did this survey in January and February when I think things looked really quite doom and gloom. We were still seeing the after effects of the mini budget, and the economy was looking really poor at that point. And so that probably contributes to why 66 was the score. I do have a gut feel that if we did that survey again today, actually we'd see that number at least increase slightly from the 66, maybe not getting back to 74 where we were at last year. But I do get that sense. I don't know if you see this, Katie, with other agency owners, that actually they are starting to feel a little bit better about the year ahead. Things are looking a little bit more promising now as well.
Traditionally, we were working with lots of agencies. We're not so much anymore. And a lot of them probably just because, and we're seeing this actually come through right now more than ever, they just can't afford to, they need to work with us because they need help, but the pressure is on them and the budget's being looked at, and it's just not a space, and luckily, last year we started to transition to work with a lot more of the kind of MarTech businesses. So we've transitioned who our clients are in quite a big way at Street, which if I hadn't done, I can tell you now, be in quite a worrying situation right now, because I do think the pressure is on agencies. I think, like you say, they're not making the margins that they once were, and therefore, everything is being scrutinized, and everything, we're all worried about it. Now, my answer to that, and I know, Rory, you agree with me because we've spoken about this a few times, is, now is not the time to be scraping back and not spending on your marketing, because if you lose your voice and you're not able to connect with, other people, and you're not building that engagement, then at some stage it's going to get really, really tough in order for you to attract and win new clients. So, it doesn't have to be expensive. Of course, there are options out there where you can outsource your marketing a bit like what we do, but there are other options. So I think, for me, that's a really, it is something that we're starting to see. But my one piece of advice is don't stop having a voice, because if you don't engage and nurture an audience, at some point this is going to get even harder. So you've got to keep on keeping on in whatever way that looks like.
Yeah, 100%. Completely agree. I think the temptation is to cut your own marketing spend in these difficult times. But absolutely, I think there's loads of opportunities out there. Actually, it can still be a really positive year for a lot of agency owners. We're seeing some clients having a terrific start to the year as well. And so I think getting in front of your audience, getting in front of your potential clients, and investing in, like you said, your own voice is a really smart move. We did some further analysis later in Benchpress around the amount that's spent on marketing. And there's a really clear, a really, really, really obvious, and it's no surprise, a really obvious difference between those agencies that are spending more than 1% of their turnover on marketing and those that are spending less than 1%. So, and we're not suggesting, by the way, that 1% is the marker. There's a lot of most agencies spending between 5 and 10%, some spending more than 10% on their own marketing. But what's amazing is that there's still some that are spending less than 1% of their turnover on marketing. And those are significantly below where the others are when it comes to growth rates.
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? Yesterday, I recorded day before yesterday. Have you heard of an agency called Clout, Rory?
The name rings a bell.
Amelia Sordell. She's quite a thing on LinkedIn. In fact, right. I did a post about her. This is pre the podcast even being launched, and just put a post about it. And it literally has been my highest performing post. I've got something like 70,000 views in the space of a day. Yeah, it's gone crazy, which is really, really good. But she does, a lot of work on her personal brand, and she's consistently pushing out helpful, insightful content, which is what I always do. It was a really interesting podcast, actually. But if you look at the agencies that are growing, they are the ones that have a voice. You have to invest in this stuff. And it was super interesting because we've had I think I was saying to you earlier, Rory, we've had an operations team come in, a fantastic lady. And she was like, look, do you need to be, I've always separated out a sales and marketing team, and it's an expensive thing to do. It's quite a small agency, we're roughly sort of 10, 12 people. But actually, I can't, she was like, well, that person could also be looking after clients, and you should treat yourself like a client, but I won't do it. That's the one thing that I am refusing to do. And I am content. And, you may tell me that, the same advice that she has, but speaking to Amelia from Clout as well, she's got a team of, 2 in her marketing team who just look after her personal brand, their marketing. She's just recruiting another salesperson, and they're a similar size to us. She's growing, and she's got big growth targets. But for me, you just have to invest. That you can see it. The agencies that are growing are the ones that you see pushing their content and their marketing out. If you go quiet, your sales are going to get quieter. It's just, to me, it's so obvious. But yeah, I mean, it's one of many, many things that you need to be focusing on. But I promise you guys, if there's one thing you want to pull back on, don't let it be your marketing. Spend more on your marketing. Look at other areas that you can pull back on, because it will pay dividends and it is worth it. You've just got to sit with it, and you've got to keep doing it, and you've got to keep on keeping on, because if you don't, like Rory said, the facts are there to be seen in the report. If you don't, you will attract and win less clients, which is going to make you less profitable. Mm-hmm. So I've got a few questions. Sorry, Rory, you were going to add something else. You go.
No. You go for it. I think we'll come to this anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say my next question, of course, is around. So, that is a challenge. That is, to me, of course. I talk a lot about marketing. Marketing is going to be a challenge. People are going to want to. It feels natural to cut back. What other challenges do you think agencies are seeing right now that we can kind of try and help, give some advice on how to solve?
Yeah, so we ask this question as well within Benchpress, and it's really interesting to see what those top challenges are for agency owners, because I think that's where the opportunities present themselves. And what was really interesting is for both agencies under and over £1 million turnover, the top 3 challenges were the same. New business, unsurprisingly, number one for both sizes. New business was the number one challenge. For agencies under £1 million turnover, working in the business and not on it was the second biggest challenge, and then profitability was the third biggest challenge. And then for agencies over £1 million turnover, those two were switched around. So I think ultimately still showing those 3 being the greatest challenges. New business being number one, well, it's exactly as you've just described, Katie, actually. Are you investing in that? Are you still getting in front of your audience? I'm a big believer as well. That's something that can really help with this, is that ability to specialize and niche in what you do, because it makes your job so much easier when figuring out, well, great, Rory and Katie are talking about getting in front of people and getting in front of an audience, but what is that audience? Who are they? Well, actually, if you can really niche down in terms of who you work with and what your ideal client looks like, that list presents itself. It's dead obvious who you need to be getting in front of and who you need to be speaking to. If you can specialize as well in terms of your own skill set and what it is you do, again, that process just becomes easier. So, hey, we want to get in front of you people. You're who we're really good at serving. And this is what we're really good at delivering. So your messaging and positioning ultimately is really rock solid. That will really help with new business. Will also help with pricing as well. If you can be really specialist at what you do and really niche in terms of who you work with, that will allow you to charge those more premium rates, which in turn, of course, helps with profitability, which is second and third on the list.
Yeah, it does make it hard though, and I think you've got to be brave. You've got to try this stuff. And I talk a lot about niching, and it's a big subject that every industry faces. But I think specifically in the agency world, understanding who you're for, understanding what you do and what you do really well. Don't also be afraid to evolve and change. Like I said, we're not going to work with agencies so much anymore. We will, but we're working with a lot more MarTech companies. So, BigCommerce, Contentful, those kind of businesses that I know we do a fantastic job for, but also have got, who can afford us and are really, really good at doing the follow-ups and converting the leads that we help them create. So although we're still going to talk to agencies, we're not going to be going after them as much as we were. We're going to be really clear and really focused on actually trying to work with more of the MarTech companies and in specific, actually, even more niche, Mac, people in the Mac Alliance, for instance, because we do a fantastic job for them. We know how to work with them. We do really well. And again, in terms of the services that we provide them, it's very much around demand gen and putting on events for them. We then do a great job. They usually do these kind of partner events that we then gets us in front of other partners. So, we're changing who we are as an agency. I think sometimes that can feel scary as a business to look at, which kind of clients am I making good profit with? What trends can I see? Do I need to change the dial? No, don't think that you have to do something and then you have to stick to it forever. I mean, you should try and stick to it, but I really try to have an eye on the data to understand, because if I hadn't done that, I can see that agencies are pulling back and they don't want to spend as much money with us. I can also see that we're doing great work and delivering great things, for these MarTech companies. So it was obvious and clear to me that we had to change our marketing and go-to-market strategy, because I'm not saying that there's no, of course, there's a few agencies that do what we do in our space and we all do it slightly differently. And I'm not saying that we're not going to have a voice there anymore. It's just on my focus, and I'm going to have a bigger voice with these MarTech companies because I can see the opportunities there. So I think there's also a big part to play in. Don't be scared to evolve and change. And niching is really important. But you don't have to. You don't have to have one niche. You can have a couple of niches. But market to a niche, because when you market to a niche, that's when you get cut through, because people can understand who you are, how you're going to help them, how the problems that you can help them overcome, and the very clearly understand the services you provide to kind of to cure that problem for them. So for us, our lead thing right now is very, very simple. It's much larger agencies, but mainly MarTech companies, and it's putting on demand gen events that will really help them get them in front of their prospects and convert them. And we've got loads of really insightful, helpful content that will help them do that themselves, but hopefully lots of them will just want us to do it for them.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think you made a really valid point that I think a big misconception is to suddenly niche and specialize. You have to ditch everything that you've ever done. And that isn't the case at all. You can continue working with the same clients as you're currently working with. Your marketing in general can continue to be the same thing. And you can almost add this as an arm. So it's risk-free. You're not suddenly cutting off all these other potential clients and saying, we'll only work with you. But that starting point can just be, hey, actually, we want to work with more businesses like you in this particular sector. And have you already got a few clients that can start making some introductions or inviting you along to events? So it doesn't need to be this big decision where once you've gone there, you can't go back. You can try something new and add it to your existing offering.
Yeah, love that. And it's so true. And try it and keep going with it and see if you get engagement. If you don't try, you don't know. I think that's the other thing is, look at the data, trust your gut, and just give it a go. And hopefully you'll get some good engagement, and off you go. You've opened up a whole new world of money that you didn't know was there before, which is kind of how I feel about the new market that we're going for. So next up, I want to kind of dig into a bit more around the kind of what the priority should be, but also how do we get over this pricing challenge? Because it's really, really tough. We clearly, by the sounds of things, need to put our prices up. How do we position ourselves to put our prices up without losing clients?
I have a big belief that pricing is a bit of a game, really. I think pricing is an art. It's not a science. There isn't a right level to charge. There's not a right way to do it. And I also really, really, really passionately believe that it is more about your approach to pricing and how you position your services and yourself as an agency and your approach within that sales process than it is about your hourly rate. So if you are just charging an hourly rate for a service, you're commoditizing what you're doing slightly. The value perception isn't there as much. You're just going to be competing on price to a lot of businesses. Actually, if you can turn that on its head and you can really think about your positioning, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but this does come back somewhat to specializing and niching, because that does help to showcase you as an expert at what you do. But if you're able to get that nailed and you're able to get your positioning really, really strong, you can position how you're going to help this potential client as the value that you're going to add to their business, rather than we're going to achieve X, Y, and Z, and you will pay us X amount per hour to do that. So I would really encourage you to play that game, to play around with how you position that. Like I've spoken about this loads before, and I'm sure a lot of listeners will be familiar with Blair Enns' Pricing Creativity, a brilliant book all about agency pricing. There's so much good stuff in there. I'd 100% recommend, if you're interested in pricing, you check it out. You won't be able to put it down. But my highlight from that book is the 3 pricing options. Being able to offer 3 pricing options. And we've seen, by the way, in bench press analysis from last year, that those agencies offering more than 1 pricing option are more profitable as a whole than those offering just 1 option in your proposals. So there's a whole psychology around the pricing options, but you can anchor someone's view on how expensive you are by that first fee that you give. So giving that first most expensive option first allows them to go, oh, okay, he's mentioned 50K. Oh, well, my budget was 20 and 50 suddenly sounds expensive. If your second option, though, is, well, we can do the majority of that stuff, but we can leave off X, Y, and Z, and we can do it for 20K, suddenly that feels like really good value, because that potential buyer has been weighted and anchored around that 50K figure, the first figure that they heard. And then if you can offer a third option as well, which is, again, sacrificing a few other bits, but you can get it done for 15K rather than 20, again, you can position that in a really smart way where you go, oh, well, actually, that middle option sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Because I kind of like the idea of having these few things here. So, like I said, I definitely won't have done that justice. If you're interested in this, definitely check out Pricing Creativity by Blair Enns. But I think my point stands that pricing is a bit of a game. It's something you should play with and find something that's right for you and work on your positioning and how you do that, not just focus on the hourly rate.
Yeah, what I love about, and I've been lucky enough to have on my previous podcast, Blair Enns come on and actually speak about this. So maybe we'll add a little link to that episode because it does cover it off in an hour, in a really nice, succinct way. But is that it means you never have to discount, because, and we were talking about this earlier, weren't we? You don't have to discount because you're giving them options and you're reducing your services, which means you're not having to discount. And I really strictly stand by that at Street. We do not give discounts. That is not how we work. But we can reduce the scope. Now, the responsibility then sits on the client to say, if we're not going to do this, it still needs to be done. So you're going to have to do it, or you have to accept that the results aren't going to be as good because you're not doing everything you need to do. So it's, I think having that kind of pricing structure really helps, like you say, one, profitability, but two, position you in a way that's really clear, because you've got, same rules apply, right, to your client. Like, would they expect to, be able to deliver the same service or deliver the same products at a discounted price? Probably not, because they're not going to make money. So yeah, stand by it. And that's such a good tip.
100%. And I think with discounting, I mentioned earlier, I really don't believe in discounting. I think you should avoid it as much as possible. But if you do find you have to discount, at the very least, please work out what are you getting in return. Because if you are willing to just give away 10% as a discount, which, by the way, will have a knock-on effect of 5% roughly to your gross profit. And people often forget that and think, 10% won't make a difference. But if you're willing to just give away a discount for nothing, that client's going to scratch their head and go, hang on a minute, were they just ripping me off in the first place? Like, well, I'm going to barter with them every time now. If you can turn around and say, well, okay, I might be able to get a discount past our finance director, for example. However, in return, we might need you to agree to preferred cash flow terms, for example. Well, that's a bit of a win that you would actually genuinely be willing to give the discount in return for that. Is it that you can use them as a case study, or that they're going to do a testimonial for you? Is it that they promise to refer you to 3 people within that sector because you're starting to niche within that particular industry? So have a think about what you can get in return to justify why you're willing to part with some cash. From your perspective, you're getting something in return.
Yeah, love that. Great bit of advice. One, I mean, there's hopefully lots of takeaways today, but one, if you can start offering those 3 prices in your proposals, that's so going to help. So helpful. And I love actually the putting the most expensive one first, because I probably sometimes forget to do that. So you've reminded me of something today. I like that. Of course, a big part of what you guys do is all about the money side of things. So, we are heading into, are we officially in recession yet? I don't even know if we are or we aren't.
I think we're actually narrowly going to avoid a recession, but pretty much based on a technicality.
I know. I mean, it feels like we're in one, doesn't it?
It does. There's been a lot of talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So what can we do as agents? I mean, obviously some of the stuff we've already spoken about, but outside of the things that we've spoken about in terms of, making sure you've got a share of voice, continue on marketing, niching, these kind of pricing options, are there any other things that agencies can do to prepare for potentially slightly tougher times ahead?
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of summarizing it. It doesn't matter whether we hit a recession or not. It's all about difficult times. Thinking back to COVID as well is a great example of this. And I think ultimately it comes down to your resilience as a leader, but also at the business as a whole. How resilient is your business? The good news is, this is a bit of a plug, Katie. I hope it's okay. But we have a what we're calling our recession diagnostics tool, which is a very, very short survey, very different to Benchpress, that is free to complete. And you answer some questions, which then gives you personalized results as to how resilient your business is in 5 key areas that I'm going to try and do my best to remember what those 5 key areas are. I might have to look in some notes. But that's a really good first step. If you're concerned about this, if you're thinking about where your business is, how resilient your business is, if we did get into really challenging times, actually, what would be the areas you need to focus on now to set yourself up for that as best as possible? I definitely recommend you take part in this recession diagnostics tool. Those 5 key areas, I'm going to dig it out here because I've got it written down. Here we go. So those 5 key areas are financial resilience. So ultimately, how much cash you have in the business, having contingency plans in place, having forecasts ready to go for the business. The second is strategy and planning. So actually, are you thinking about potentially adapting your offering or your products? Have you got clear KPIs that will show how you're performing as a business? Your ability to generate revenue is number 3. So this is talking about upselling, which is really, really important in these difficult times when new business might be a little bit slower. So upselling to existing clients, have you got a plan there? Are your team engaged in that? But also we'll cover things like how reliant you are on one particular client, one particular industry, for example. The 4th area is team performance. So how well are you communicating with the team? Are you keeping them in the loop with what's happening? Are they engaged in the journey that your business is going on? And the 5th area is leadership. So you as an individual, actually, first of all, is how mentally healthy are you feeling right now? Because you're going to need to steer this ship in difficult times, and you need to make sure you're putting time aside to yourself to ensure you're in a really good frame of mind that will allow you to make smart decisions. And are you spending your time wisely as well? Actually, where are you investing your time? Are you investing it in the most high value places? If you are wasting time, ultimately doing things other people can be doing, whether that's admin and finance or whether that's client work because you're just guilty of getting sucked into it, whatever it is, find a way to outsource that or get that off your desk so you can be focusing on the highest value work that you can be doing.
Oh, Rory, I love it. Just speaking to you makes me kind of confident that I am actually doing the right things sometimes. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Because it has, this year definitely has felt harder for us as a business. I'm happy to admit that, not every year is going to be easy. And that's life, right? You can't, if it was always easy, running a business, probably wouldn't be as rewarding and as fun as it sometimes is. But I think certainly, again, the other thing we're hugely investing in at the moment, as well as, changing and adapting our niche, as well as, making sure that we're pricing things in the correct way, is that operational stuff, the things that sit behind the business that enable us to run at speed, enable us to be more profitable. So, looking at the technologies that can, we're moving all of our operational systems where, I'm really paying attention to probably taking some risks in terms of, the people that we need within the business to relieve me so that I can focus on the business and growing the business and, the sales and all the things that I love doing, and releasing me from some of the tasks that maybe at the moment we don't have anyone else that's able to do, which sometimes feels scary because they, some of these hires are going to be big, expensive hires for us. But I am fairly happy to take those risks because I'm confident that they're, going to go in the right direction. So yeah, I think some of it is, like you say, you've got to be in a good mental state in order to make these decisions, but also, have some guidance, support, and people, like lovely Rory and the team at Wow, that help you make the right decisions. It's tough. It's really tough sometimes, but I think, making sure that if you can focus on those 5 things, I think that really, really helps.
And I think adding to that, with the leadership bit, do make sure you're surrounding yourself with a sounding board with mentors, with guides, whether that's ideally co-directors. Of course, that's great. Making sure you're getting time together with your co-founders or co-directors. But if you are doing this alone, is it a life partner, for example, that you're speaking to? Is it a mentor or a coach that you're working with on a regular basis, where you have that accountability and the time in the diary? Is it, and again, this isn't a plug, but is it your accountant? This is something we do with a lot of our clients, where we're getting together with them every month or every quarter to actually just sit down and take that time out of the business to go, how are things going? What's the temperature? What do we need to be focusing on? Where are we winning? Where are we not winning? And I think having someone, whoever that is, or a few people in your circle that can do that and be that sounding board, that's so powerful.
Yeah, a great investment. The operations team that we're working with, and my non-exec, because I am I don't have any co-founders. It's just me, and I don't have a life partner either. Apart from the dogs that entered the room earlier, and my daughter maybe, who is incredibly clever. So maybe she's better than a life partner anyway. But it's so important for me to have that network of people that can really help me make the right decisions, because sometimes you need a bit of guidance and just an external view, or someone that maybe isn't as in it as you are, that can really help you make the right decisions and, move forward in the correct way. I think that's super important. Yeah. Rory, I have loved our conversation today. Every year the report is brilliant. We will make sure all of the links, guys, so that you can download and read the report, the links to the events that Rory has mentioned that they're putting on that you may want to join, will all be linked there, as well as the reference to Blair Enns. I'll send you directly to Blair, but also to an episode of a recording that I recorded on the Word on the Street podcast with him, specifically around the pricing stuff. And maybe actually, Rory, I'll also reference, there's going to be loads of references in here. Everything you need will be in the show notes, guys. Some of our previous episodes as well, because yourself and also Peter have been on the podcast before, and we've spoken about a lot of these things in kind of layers of different detail. So we'll pop all the show notes there. Before I let you go and enjoy the rest of your day, could you give me, I don't know, either someone that you know or that you would recommend or that you think I should interview on the podcast?
Oh, that's a good question. There's a lot of names. I'm very fortunate. I get to hang out with some brilliant people.
You do?
I would say, obviously yourself included, Katie. I think if you haven't already, which you may have done, but I would have missed it if you did, Nikki Gattenby.
Okay.
Is brilliant. She was MD at Propellernet down in Brighton, and wrote a fantastic book, super engaged back then, all around engaging your team, and that is brilliant. I've read that one. She's just written a second book called, I'm pretty sure it's Better Business on Purpose, and talks a lot about having a purpose within your business and the power of that, and again helping internally your team engage with that, externally potential clients engaging with that. But she is a brilliant person to know in this industry and in life. So I think you two would get on very, very well.
Amazing. Love that. And that's one thing we probably didn't talk about enough today, is the purpose side of things. But now you've just given me Nikki to speak to that about, so that's fine. Rory, thank you so much for joining. It's been a pleasure as always. And I hope to speak to you again very soon.